Alright, time for Fullest House, first edition, where we are playing Vaettiheim. It is turn 42, and we may have a large battle this turn, although I suspect it's just going to be assassination attempts. We finish more blood magic, which is good. We're definitely late to the party there, bringing in birds for patrollers, bone fiends, maybe patrollers, and also just beefing up our armies a bit. Blood feast on one of our more useful casters, which will get rid of afflictions. She was diseased, so hopefully it removed that. Let's see, 280 people, which is not great, but it successfully cured many afflictions. You do have a 25% of gaining, I forget what it's called, but the commander then hungers for flesh, and they just kill population every turn, so hopefully we didn't get that. I guess cannibalism doesn't always go right. Well, I'm not sure if you can call it cannibalism, since she's a giantess, and probably assumedly is just eating goblins or people. Who can say? We also bring in a Shadow Imp for scouting, and we summon, not going to bother trying to pronounce this, it's like some sort of like undead or demonic pigs. The nice thing about them is they have a fear aura, but this is perhaps a questionable use of death gems, but I can't resist at least trying out the national summons. And as far as summons go, I don't think they're awful, just maybe a little pricey. Then we have a magic phase attack. This is looking like Call Us or Horrors. Horror Mantises are pretty nasty. Yeah, I mean, just gross, right? 22 protection and 19 hit points, not so bad. Pretty decent skills and like 4 attacks, and they have a fear aura, spirit side as well, because like, sure, why not? And this is the same army, and we saw a horror attack against this before, but again, I don't think that this is going to trigger gem usage, and like, while these horror mantises are really scary, like, right, yeah, they don't have any elemental resistances, so with this many casters, I don't know, this kind of just feels like a waste of gems. That said, I have not done much horror stuff, so maybe, Marignon knows that there's a certain role, right, because you get different horrors every time, or at least, you get a random set of horrors when you cast it, so possibly there's a specific set that they're looking for that they feel like is going to do well. But so far it has not worked out. Speaking of not working out, we don't really find any sites. At least our dead prophet's power has left the world, so we can declare a new one, which is nice. We only blood hunt in 2 provinces this turn because our patrollers are not up to snuff. In the 3rd province, that's where the birds went, so we'll get our blood hunting up again next turn, and hopefully in the next 2 to 3 turns we'll be blood hunting 4 provinces. And then it looks like Utgard has jumped in the war against Raga, so this is definitely good. And yeah, we've seen this Scrawdy Thug on our border. Pretty standard-ish kit, I would say, right? These are always classic. The Shroud of the Battle Saint is a little interesting. If I recall correctly, Scrawdy kind of go back and forth in between the ages, whether or not they're like sacred and priests or not. But it looks like in late age, they are not, but giving them the shroud will make them sacred. And this is definitely all relevant stuff for this Scrawdy. Recuperation, I think, is going to be particularly nice on them, since Scrawdies tend to not rely on protection. They just rely on their really good regeneration. Well, okay, they have just normal regeneration, but you can make it a lot better if you have it on your Bless or with an item, which this Scrawdy does not, but they have a fairly large hit point pool. But this does mean that they take a lot of hits, so they tend to take a lot of afflictions, and like, yeah, Raga really has been investing pretty heavily in province defense, I would say, which, I don't know, normally I feel like is not great, but they are really large, so it's going to be very difficult for them to deal with raiders. But yeah, I don't know, this is just a pretty bog standard Scrawdy Thug with like not a ton of gem investment. Some definitely, like this is not like a really budget Scrawdy Thug, but this is quite a bit of province defense and actually like a pretty decent PD type, I would say, as well. And like, this is the problem with like high investment with province defense, is that it's not that hard to build thugs that are going to wipe it out, although we may struggle a bit with it since we don't have a great thug chassis just yet. So anyway, that works out for Utgard. And then we take control of a province where there was no province defense left by Pangaea, and then we have a couple other raids against Pangaea. Not expecting too much resistance here, but of course, here's a bunch of resistance. So Pangaea chose to move into one of their own provinces, perhaps hoping to catch raiders, perhaps hoping to combine, right, with their main force that's sitting inside of Abyssia, because I believe that this province is on the path. So yeah, there's no way that this is going to work out. We are going to donate a frost. I don't know about no way. It's pretty unlikely. Hopefully we'll at least like deal some damage. I mean, we do have ethereal and luck, right? And we have air shield from our Bless, a bit of air shield. So like we have a lot of layers of defense, but like, yeah, once like pretty much one hit gets through, and like this guy's not going to be that killy, He's going to be a little killy with the Frostbrand, but this is just like a lot of mundane troops, some of whom have luck as well put on them, right? Because there is some caster support here. And a hit gets through almost immediately. Body Ethereal really not doing a whole lot for us. Luck probably has saved us once. I don't even know if we're going to get a kill here. This lack of strength is a bit of a problem, and then unfortunately we're probably also going to lose this Hag, although you can see that the mundane troops don't have very good magic resistance, right? So the Astral Shield is actually doing pretty good work for us, but eventually it's going to get through. I don't think we really get too many hits, too many kills. This is definitely not worth it. Oh, interesting. Our goat actually managed to escape. Did he survive? He survived the retreat, so that's not so bad. But these Veti Hags, with the Astral one, are probably some of our more valuable Veti Hags, so risking them in the raids like this, we can see that, it's risky. So, we're going to lose some, and is it worth it? I don't know. Definitely that one didn't work out, although, we won't normally go against defenses that strong. And then, of course, where we move our heavy raiding group, we run into nothing, but that's just how it goes sometimes. We do at least take that one with no losses, so that's always nice. And then Marignon, right, is attacking that army with the Pretender. Interesting. So this must be a bit of a trap or a cheese. Looks like they're probably going with an Earthquake trap, is my guess, with all these Earth gems. Maybe. There's a lot of turn 1 stuff that goes off, but a lot of this stuff is not super high HP. So I do think there were some casualties there, and there is a ring returning on this Pretender. But it looks like her protection, or its protection, was high enough that it didn't take damage, right? So the ring returning didn't trigger. And so, is that Hell Power? No, it looks like Bloodletting is coming up. I think that's Heat from Hell that I saw. So that is, Bloodletting is what the Blood Slaves are for, which is also a battlefield-wide damage spell. And I'd say this is a pretty decent trap. This also burns gems, of course. This is one of the dangers, right, of just, having an army, sit on top of a fort. That said, it's been here long enough, this Pretender must have just walked over, right? Because you can't magic phase another Earthquake. Nice. And I saw there's a spell interrupted. Fog Warriors probably would have helped a lot against this, and is maybe something the Merfolk can do. I'm not sure. Although, that would be pretty good research. Although, totally possible by this point. I'd say this is a pretty good trap, and the Pretender's probably... pretty fatigued out, also out of gems. So it's just a question of it gets sent home, I think. The Pretender no longer shows up in the commander list, so it was not killed, although it did take a fairly significant hit there. I think this is the fellow who's been given that cleaver. The Carmine Cleaver does a lot of damage, but Pretenders have, at least the Titan Pretenders have quite a bit of health. And I would say that was absolutely worth it, because quite a few mages, 16 mages more. 22 mages are killed, which is pretty significant. Now, I think the Merfolk nation is large enough that they're going to be able to sustain these losses and carry forward. But they might rethink this war against Marignon, because it's definitely something that Marignon can continue to do. Now, that said, I'm sure we will start to see some counterplay, but still, this is a very expensive loss, losing all these mages. The army itself is actually, not heavily damaged from a troop standpoint, but, losing this many mages does weaken the army overall from a combat standpoint. So if Marignon has an army nearby, this army is probably going to have to withdraw now, and may want to withdraw anyway, right, since Marignon can keep this up more or less indefinitely until they get a counter in place. So while the horrors haven't been going great, I think that was a great use of some battlefield-wide traps, or however you want to call it, cheese, this, that, or the other, and definitely highlights the advantages of having something that's not a ice druid, ice father, but frost father, like we have, right? The rainbows are really useful, but they're not so great for situations like that. And then I'm not sure. Oh, right, this is another one of our raids against fairly heavy province. Not heavy. This is probably 6. Feels like maybe a little more than 6. This guy we've given some bodyguards, but otherwise is more or less the same thing, right? Some luck probably. No, we didn't manage to get luck on, but at least protection and body ethereal, and we have a Frostbrand. We're going for the attack rear. If we can snipe the commanders, maybe just the one commander, that would be nice, because, we can trigger a rout. But now we're up against quite a bit of stuff, and this is starting to look a bit dangerous. Luckily, it looks like our caster isn't getting targeted. So yeah, this is going decently well for us. So we'll see if we can keep it up. Definitely much better than when we ran into like a full raiding group. Oh great, now she's just blinking around. Don't do that. So this does work out for us, but it was a little on the scary side. We didn't actually take. Well, it looks like our bodyguards took some damage. So yeah, maybe bodyguards, right, are the answer. That other group didn't have any bodyguards. It's like just still trying to experiment with how much investment is needed. But of course, the other battle was not a fair fight. So yeah, we lose one of the bodyguards, and we're up against like slightly more than 6 province defense against like mediocre PD type, especially for the late age. I'm coming more from early age experience, so like this looks pretty good to me. It's pretty average, I would say, for late age. And then I forgot to mention, we are going after one of our independent attacks, the Vinemen and all that. And yeah, we have sort of a similar kind of group. Right, we have, another one of our guys with frost brands, but then we brought like some of our little mage squares with all the berserkers on bodyguard, and I think this is going to work out for us. Funny enough, it's actually these two who look like they're set to stay behind troops, thankfully, but they're tramplers, so that's kind of scary for us. Otherwise, we're doing a little bit of skelly spam, like not too worried about the satyrs or like the Vinemen aren't very good. Oh yeah, I think we have an attack rear. I've lost track of, here's our goad. Yeah, nice. All right, so he didn't die. That's good. It's getting a little scary back here with the Vinemen. Nah, but that works out, so not that scary. Yeah, overall this group worked pretty well, though we are using like, 3 mages, 4 mages? 3 mages, I think. So, decent amount of research lost. We do need to recapture this forest. That is important. So yeah, that raid went, ooh, no, we did lose our goad. We at least found our Frostbrand. I don't know what he ran into, because he survived at least a lot of the combat. But yeah, these goads, I want them to work, but, people say, you can't really, thug, humans because they don't have enough hit points, and these guys have, they have pretty much human-level hit points, but, they suffer from exactly that problem. The low strength is also not great. So I'll probably continue to experiment with these guys, but I think, probably the answer lies in blood summons. Certainly once we hit, Blood 6 and Illwinter, yes, obviously all that, but, again, Illwinter is going to draw a lot of ire, so I feel like we want to find something that we can use before we get there. And then there was a battle in Tianqi, and this is probably a storm, so yeah, very curious because we have not seen anything from Joan. And it looks like they are also using a decent number of archers, which could work out well for them. Actually using quite a few mercenaries, it looks like. It looks like these mages in the front have been set up, mostly for some elemental spam. Probably some lesser elementals, because some of these guys, that's all they can cast. And then the Pretender has shown up, so he's taking a Dragon King. If Jomon gets underwater, they can summon in a commander who is kind of similar to these guys that is one of the main sources of strength for the nation. Unfortunately, it is fairly difficult for them to get underwater because they don't really have anything else that's built in. Like the stuff that they have that's good underwater, they need to recruit underwater. So it's a bit of a chicken and an egg problem, and the fact that this map doesn't have a ton of water on it already probably makes life a bit harder for them. But yeah, this definitely could work out. Although I think, there's quite a bit of skelly spam going on. A few birds get thrown into the back line. That's never bad, right? Distracting the casters. Blade Wind, going to be decently scary, although the elementals won't care about it so much. A lot of dudes in robes on both sides, so archers, I think, are going to be relevant, the whole battle. I don't think either party... Ooh, the howl went up. That looks like it's coming from Jomon. And I've recently discovered that if you just press C, that will turn on team-colored squares for you. So yeah, we're definitely going to need that, because... there's lots of different summons running around. A lot of skeletons getting distracted by the wolves, which is going to be really nice, to get through the gate. So, this is looking like it's going to work out. There's not a ton of chaff, right? They're really kind of relying on those skeletons, but of course, skeletons that you summon in can't be given orders, and it looks like they just default to attack closest. And so, they get distracted by the wolves. Now, there's definitely, still enough stuff here that Jomon's not out of the woods yet. But, the elementals are helping clear the walls. The Pretender can fly. That's nice. I think this is going to work out for them. Though, there is quite a lot of undead building up. So, there's probably still going to be some pain. But some of these mages have been set to advance and cast spells. So, they're able to do some close-range banishment, as well as some astral casting that gets rid of undead pretty effectively. And the Pretender's up here. So yeah, that works out for them. I think without too many losses. Let's take a look. Yeah, it definitely wasn't free, right? Those dudes in robes. Probably mostly going down to archers, but probably nothing they can't afford. Like, yeah, this guy's only 95 gold, 145, a little more painful. This guy only 70 gold. So yeah, I think nothing that they can't afford to lose. And they don't really lose hardly anything in terms of troops. They don't really bring hardly anything in terms of troops, like really other than the mercenaries. So kind of an interesting battle there. There's apparently also a demi-lich on Tianqi's side. And you can take a quick look at this guy if you'll indulge me for a moment. Demi-liches are pretty hard to track down because they are incredibly small. Yeah, here he is right here. Right, I think we've seen this demi-lich, yeah, just a little bit of death. So this is a pretty pure scales build, it looks like, which both explains where a lot of the undead and skeletons come from, and also like why we didn't really see any big casting out of them. So yeah, not a bad effort from Tianqi, but nicely done by Zhouman, and an interesting battle to watch. And then, of course, we have a bunch of unexpected events, some of which are attacks, sadly. The crops have failed, so some province gets +2 death, which hurts. But luckily, we do have growth, so we should counteract that. We found the old man in the woods. That's very nice. So one of our hags gets nature magic +1. And I think the hags are always nature 1, so now we have a nature 2, which is nice, but not that great. And we find a woodhenge druid as well. Definitely beats, a lot of the misfortune events. Hey, we're getting a lucky turn. We get some nature gems. This is more like it. We lose some province income. Lose some more province income. And then independence attacked the merfolk people. We like that because they're not busy attacking us. Although, yeah. Oh, there was a sneaking unit. Oh, this is probably a false prophet, I'm guessing. I'm hoping. No. Oh, this is a dryad. That's a little sad. So we did not manage to contact this dryad. This is one of our blood hunting provinces. So yeah, we're probably going to lose some birds here, which is sad. Although that said, like, yeah, dryads don't actually have much in the way of armor. And the birds, against unarmored targets do a decent amount of damage. And they're so fast that you don't really have a lot of time to do any kind of buffing. And then we find a Pangean unit as well. This is probably another dryad. No, just a Harpy Scout. This is on top of one of our forts, so our wolves are actually, coming in. I don't know about clutch, but right, they do have assassins. I was assuming they were going to assassinate our army, right, that's sitting on top of Abysia, but it looks like they chose not to, so there's a decent chance that their assassins are out and about in our lands. We definitely don't want them to sit on top of our forts, assassinating our mages, and our patrolling, helps prevent that. We have managed to bring the walls to moderately damaged, and this is without really any of our siege strength elements. So yeah, there's maybe not as much in here as I thought. We might even be able to crack next turn by bringing all of our siege strength elements onto it. And then we have some patrolling, and that was it for Tianqi. So they are eliminated. Hey, and we have a new famous hero, he's Valor, which is, I guess that's good. We can definitely use these guys for command. This just makes units under his command have more morale. Not really that useful for a thug. But then again, these guys are kind of questionable as thug chassis, so perhaps the universe is trying to give me a hint. And I will catch you guys after the jump. Alright, this is the situation and what we're doing about it. The main thing, of course, is we're still sitting on top of this fort, but we are switching the plan. We have the death gems in place. We will have the communion in place. Since it is a blood communion, and I forgot to bring blood slaves, which are required to enter a blood sabbath, which is a blood communion, I'm forced to have another commander rush some blood slaves out. One thing about blood that's unusual is that commanders do not actually have to have the gem in their inventory, so to speak. As long as they are close enough on the battlefield to the blood slave, it doesn't really matter like who they're assigned to, whereas with other gems, you can only use what you have in your inventory. So we're going to hopefully take advantage of that to correct my logistical errors and my unfamiliarity with blood. But assuming that all works out, and even if it doesn't work out, we're actually splitting off one of our astral hags because we already have a little bit of a communion here, mostly to support our skelly spam. But all the communions funnel into just there's only ever one communion. Doesn't matter how you get into it. So we just need a boost of 1, so we should be okay. But a little bit of terror, as I realized, like, wait a minute, I'm not actually going to be able to set up this Sabbath. And then the other big thing is, we've switched everyone over to sieging, so no one's hiding. So we're going to have a lot more Frozen Heart spammers, and we're going to have a lot more mundane troops. I'm assuming since this, raiding party reversed course and went into their own province, that they're looking to combine with everything that they have in Abyssia. We'll see. I could be wrong on that. Regardless, we are collapsing, most of our raiding forces that are left into this province to try to retake it. Retake it assuming that we have one twice-born mage here who's also been transformed. And we kind of actually want to turn her into a white mage. Because while there's nothing like particularly wrong with a great boar form, there is something particularly wrong with a great boar form. It's magic resistance 4. So at the moment, I don't think we're likely to go up against anybody that's going to be doing things that are going to be trying to steal or, attack our magic resistance. But in the future, our opponents definitely will be doing stuff like that. So the sooner we can get, casters like this converted over, the better. So we'll see if she can take the province solo. If she can, great. If she can't, then, she'll be a white mage. And then these raiders will probably, by and large, form the core of another army that we're likely to need to deal with this stack on top of Vaettiheim. Right, Marignan has still stalled, so it's looking like they probably don't want to tangle with Vaettiheim, which means I just don't, I foresee raiding, definitely at least, in our future. And I'm not really, especially, not willing to give up these forests, and probably not this wasteland either, because this is a lot of gems. This is, 5 gems, if I recall. Yeah. So that's a ton of gems every turn. We definitely want to hold on to this. Vaettiheim is not that large. I should probably reach out to Satis, who has managed to successfully jump on top of and crack this Atlantean fort, which notably is not Atlantis proper. I believe that, it's next door. So we'll have to see, if they have multiple sieges going on or if they still have a little bit of work to do to get rid of Atlantis. But once they finish Atlantis, then I think they're going to be a bit of a free agent. I haven't really seen any evidence of other wars. And while I think Midgard is a decently appealing target for them, Midgard is not especially large. They're also not tiny. Probably roughly the same size as Vaettiheim, maybe a little larger. But if they have a built-in ally with Vaettiheim, right, in ourselves, I think it'll be a relatively easy sell. Of course, this will leave us with a decent number of pokers in the fire. We obviously do want to, Raga. We already promised that we would jump into this war a while back, and we do intend to, hold to that if late. So we're continuing to move raiding groups up into Raga's territory. We're just going to have to be a little bit careful, and we're probably going to direct our raiding at this border to prevent Gath from jumping in and taking Arcocephaly. And I also don't really want to pressure Raga's Heartland too much, because I think if we do that, then we'll definitely redirect their focus against us. So to the end of dealing with, Vaettiheim, we'll have all these raiders and everything, and then we're also, doing some recruitment. Probably most of our capital recruitment, will go to join that army, and we should be able to pull together something. I don't think Vaettiheim's army is super strong, and poison isn't great against us since we have a lot of poison resistance on the Bless, and we have a ton of nature magic, and we can make a bunch of skeletons that don't care about poison. So, Vaettiheim is definitely a dangerous nation, can be, but I think this current setup, this current army isn't going to do great against us. That said, the Serpent Cataphracts, we don't love heavy armor, so, I've been wrong before. We'll get to see it in action probably next turn because this fort is cracked and, there isn't too much in there, although Pangea was able to do a decent job last time without too much. And then probably the last major thing is we are still trying to, build up something of an army down here. I did reach out to Gath and, offered to accept the Non-Aggression Pact 3. We are sending the Blood Slaves over this turn. Of course, we don't actually have this province to hand over to them, so, I just suggested, hey, I'm building up an army to deal with, any Patalan incursions, so I'm going to go ahead and march over, and we're going to take this back as per the agreement, on our way over, and then I can clear this province for them, or they can just raid it at their leisure. So we'll see if they get back to us about that. Like I said, I was kind of late in this diplomacy, so they may have changed their mind in the meantime, which would be fine. The Non-Aggression Pact with Gath isn't going to be fantastic, but again, we have 2 other targets that, we can go for, and the Non-Aggression Pact just means that they're going to get a heads up that we're going to be coming after them. But I find that you can still actually decently elf someone oftentimes, even after they kind of have some warning. And I'm not sure that that's like the route that we would go if we attacked Gath. And that, like I said, that could be a long way off because we have some other targets that we have to deal with. But we do, like, this whole situation has been kind of sketchy down here for us. So the other thing that this army is going to do is probably hang out while we build a fort in this province, just to make sure that, you know, people are less inclined to raid us down here. And even like all our site searching hasn't really completed down here because it's been a little bit risky to move mages in at a lot of points. So I do think it's still worth like building up this army, and it'll also hopefully dissuade Gath, you know, from attacking us. And then, you know, once the fort completes and everything, we can send it up and it can help us with Raga. So yeah, I think that covers the majority of it. Research-wise, we're getting really close to hitting Blood 6, so we'll have Illwinter available. But like I said, I kind of want to hold off on that. I've never cast a global that paints a target on your back, so you know exactly when and how to put it up is still a bit of a mystery to me. So we'll see. I definitely will reach out to Utgard and, you know, at least see where they're at on it. I still haven't looked up whether or not it helps them. I'll have to do that first. But even if it doesn't help them, well, no, actually, because they're cold, so they're going to get the random attacks more than some other people. But, you know, if we could have at least one secure border while we have it up, that would be nice. The other thing, too, of course, is, you know, our blood hunting is pretty pitiful. We should get the other group online again, hopefully somewhat soon. You can see, yeah, Unrest 54 here, so the birds will hopefully help us patrol that down. And we are casting some Bone Fiends here, and yeah, we're starting to patrol with a mage, sadly. That's one downside of using the Bone Fiends, you know, as patrollers. You need undead leadership, which sometimes not an issue for us. Kind of an issue, right? Our only undead leadership comes from our death mages. We don't have undead leadership on the Bless. Possibly a consideration for Vaettiheim. We could always summon in like a Mound King or something like that, a death commander that can, you know, lead undead units, but we don't have a ton of death gems to be spending. So we're going with the Vaettihag option for now. But yeah, anyway, hopefully we'll get this unrest down. We'll get, you know, the Blood Hunters going here. We're also forging some more dowsing rods, because we are planning on getting some blood hunting going here, although we did pull off some of our potential blood hunters. But assuming they survive the combat, we will send them back, and then, you know, we'll get another blood hunting group up here. But I think, you know, ideally, like just sort of as a random target, like I know that this is certainly achievable. People achieve much higher numbers than this, but I think, you know, we're going to be aiming to try to cast Winter's Call, right, to get Needful Jarls once we get Illwinter up. So, you know, if we can get 86 blood slaves every turn, then we'll be able to get a Jarl every turn. So seems as reasonable of a goal as any to aim for. So that's probably what we're going to be aiming for, and we're going to need more than just like one more blood hunting group, I suspect. We may also play around with some more higher level blood hunters because, yeah, the level 2s definitely seem to do significantly better. And then the last thing of note, we are doing some forging. We're forging an Armor of Souls. Speaking of blood slaves, it costs quite a few. I think it's 40. I suppose I can just check. It is indeed 40, although it should get reduced. Let's see, there is forge bonus blood items. It's kind of a mix. There's a few of them that there's no forge bonus possible, so it doesn't matter if you use a hammer or if you have the steel ovens. But for a lot of the other ones, they do get the normal discount that other items get. And this is just a blood booster, relatively expensive one, but we will need it because the other thing that we're going to be doing with the blood slaves in the meantime, before we put up Illwinter, there's another spell at 6, just a vanilla blood spell, Ritual of the 5 Gates, which just brings in, I think, 5 demons of different types. But you do need to be blood 5 to cast it, which our pretender is, right? I think he's actually, exactly blood 5. But, you know, we don't want our pretender to only, you know, just spend the rest of the game summoning in demons. That's not ideal. And hopefully we can get like more than one, you know, demon caster going eventually. So we do have 2 blood 3s, but that's it. So it's actually going to be a fairly challenging spell for us to cast, and we're never really going to be able to mass it per se. But even for the blood 3s, right, we have the blood thorn somewhere. There's a blood thorn, which is a different blood booster. So anyway, we're going to need 2 blood boosters, you know, per our cap only mages to actually have them be able to summon in demons. Oh, right, of course. Our pretender is actually only blood 4, it looks like, because he's the one with the blood thorn. So yeah, even he needs a booster in order to be casting that spell. So this is probably not the last blood booster that we will be forging. And yeah, I think that more or less covers turn 42.